Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Breakfast Extra, the best way to kick off your weekend, especially if you've been trying to keep up with the, very many whirlwind of news stories that have been bombarding us from all week long. Now, get ready, grab your front row seats, because we're about to jump into some of the most intriguing events that have happened from over the week and hopefully shed some light on the details that you might have missed amidst the busy schedules that all of you have. So, hey, which news bit had you most engaged this week? The new minimum wage settlement of 70,000 naira? It's hard to make a quip about that one after Labour keeps settling for what many argue is meager amounts. Or perhaps maybe the Kano State government move to constitute second-class emirates, like they call it. Maybe that caught your attention. Or did you follow the story about the vehicle EMRC document where the Nigerian police suddenly dropped the idea of burdening us with yet another fee for an already existing document? And let's not forget the rumor about the return of environmental sanitation. But the biggest story for us here for Breakfast Extra had to be the Edo political crisis, which came back with a double punch as the courts ruled on two matters involving Philip Shaibu's impeachment and also Asue Ighodalo's party candidacy. Oh, what a week it was. Remember the back and forth saga between Governor Abba Yusuf and his former deputy Philip Shaibu? Well, hey, in case you missed it, let's recap. Governor Abba Yusuf and Philip Shaibu had a fallout that led to Shaibu being ousted and swiftly replaced by Omobayo Godwins, if you remember. Now, many thought that was the end, but oh no, it wasn't, because this week, Justice Omotosho ruled that Philip Shaibu be reinstated, complete with his benefits and all, despite his previous removal. Now, the Edo State government has appealed, perpetuating the endless cycle of court cases, motions, and also judge shopping. That's the true hallmark of Nigerian politics, where the courts often serve as battlegrounds for political disputes. There. Summary is complete. Now, this saga, we see classic Master and Padawan scenario straight out of Star Wars, if you are a big fan. Governor Abba Yusuf, the Master, fears the rise of his student, Philip Shaibu, and proceeds to cut him down any way possible. Now, Abba Yusuf explained, however, that his lack of support for Shaibu's gubernatorial ambition wasn't just personal. He claimed the odds were against Shaibu, and he couldn't take the risk for the people of Edo State. Shaibu, however, saw his removal as a political plot against his ambitions, especially after he supported Abba Yusuf's second-term bid, if you remember. Shaibu even went rogue, organizing a parallel primary and declaring himself the winner, while Abba Yusuf's camp backed Asue Ighodalo from Edo Central, sticking to the political zoning script. And thus, the messy political battle between Master and Padawan, or student, continued. Now, I'd like us to address the elephant in the room. What exactly was Philip Shaibu accused of contravening? This mysterious Section 188, allegedly violated by Shaibu, is more elusive than a politician's promise. Now, Shaibu was removed from office by the Edo State House of Assembly over allegations of leaking government secrets, an accusation Shaibu denied, calling it a political plot against his ambition. Now, Justice Omotosho ruled that the impeachment proceedings did not comply with due process and that the allegations did not constitute gross misconduct, in quote, because we heard that plenty. So Shaibu's return has been ordered with full benefits and police protection to boot. Complete. Now, stay tuned if you want to find out the truth about this cryptic Section 188, this enigmatic phrase that keeps the plot interesting. Shaibu, by the way, wasn't just sitting down idle. He also initiated a lawsuit challenging Asue Ighodalo's candidacy. Now, this week, the Federal High Court in Abuja affirmed Dr. Asue Ighodalo's candidacy for the September 21st, 2024 governorship elections in Edo State. The court upheld that the PDP Edo State governorship primary elections held on February 22nd, 2024, validating the candidacy or credibility of the primary and PDP's internal democracy. Whew. Wow, that was a tough one. What a tangled web of rulings and political maneuvers. I mean, it was one big web last week. And it's a relief to see some clarity, at least emerging from the chaos. But one can't help but wonder what the outcomes of these rulings or court decisions will ultimately be. And then there are rumors, if you haven't been hearing, swirling about potential defections Now, could Philip Shaibu be planning a ditch from his party for a new one? Now, if that happens, things could get even murkier. Well, we wait to see. Welcome to the show. My name is Mazino and joining me is the ever-gracious Judith Atibi, who might just be getting herself sued to court, because that's where everything is settled these days. Because you didn't welcome me from my 1 week hiatus.
Well, I mean, honestly, you took the welcome out of my mouth and I decided to welcome the entire person now. So what do you want me to do? Okay, it should have been me there welcoming you, but and finally you took it. You didn't give me a chance to do the welcome.
I apologize, and I will give you that chance when we sit down together.
I'm not doing it again, Joe. Take
nah,
me to court.
You owe it to me.
Jamie, you're the one that wants to go to court.
Fine job from last week, yourself and Dr. By the way, that was fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for holding it down. Now, Lagos, Nigeria, the world, let's get ready for a lively, insightful episode of Breakfast Xtra, and hopefully we'll be able to make all this mess make sense. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
And thank you once again for joining us on this Saturday edition for Breakfast Xtra. And as you know, we've got quite the lineup for you. So ahead of the gubernatorial elections in Edo State, we're examining a major development regarding the People's Democratic Party, PDP, in Edo State. Also, from Labour's negotiations with the presidency on minimum wage as they settle on 70,000 naira. Are they settling? Which has sparked debate across the country. And we're going to discuss that as the show progresses. We're also going to take a look at Kano State's move to establish second-class emirates and remind you also that Nigerian police backtracked on plans for a new vehicle document fee and the rumors about the return of environmental sanitation. It's going to be quite the discussion. So, like I said, quite the super-packed show lined up just for you. But first, let's bring you the front pages of the dailies this morning from Nigeria and some parts of Africa. But not before I tell Mazino officially, welcome to the show.
Well,
welcome back to the set.
Thank you very much. It was well-deserved rest. Well, it wasn't really resting. I was actually working, but I just took time out to also indulge just a little bit in my wanderlust nature.
I beg you, he was on his motorbike and he was
It was a fun experience, and you should all endeavor in that kind of an activity. But
road
thank you for holding it down.
You should say thank you to Dakpo.
I have already. And you guys,
he was
did a fine job.
Sublime. He was wonderful and such a gracious gentleman. But hey, let's bring you the daily, shall we? Starting with the Vanguard, Saturday Vanguard, if you will, as we're pulling that up there for you. And the very first one that comes at you there, Nigerians to Tunumbu, palliatives not solution to food shortage, urge federal government to declare an emergency in food security, tackle insecurity caused by herders, initiate a national food production policy. You can find that story on page 10. At the side there, Nigeria 2024, half-year summary, what we told you. That story is on page 13. Dangote, if we knew the magnitude of what we were going into, we would have. It stops there with ellipsis. I wonder what it would be. You can find that story on page 16. It goes on to say, it looks like swimming to the middle of the sea, getting tired but making efforts to swim out lest you drown. Experts warn against politics. You can find that story on page 16 and page 5 as well. By the side there, Edo airport violence, APC, PDP, Edo government trade blames. You can find that story on page 13. You can also, on page 6, I beg your pardon, transfer funds in dormant account to us. CBN directs bank, targets $1 trillion economy by 2030. That story is on page 5. They keep throwing this number, 1 trillion economy. How do they intend to manage that with this type of inflation? For health, at the very top there, common painkiller reduces women's risk of deadly cancer. Medical milestone, possible HIV cure in German leukemia patient. And that story is on page 25. And that's all for the Vanguard on Saturday.
Interesting thing about Dangote there, talking about swimming to the middle of the sea and then trying all you can not to drown. That's very grim for the Dangote refinery we all think is going to be the messiah.
The Magnite.
You know, I think you missed out one headline there, and it's Caroline Hutchins. Oh, it's just Caroline.
It's just Caroline.
I'm sorry, I was just distracted. Moving on now to the Daily Trust. Weekend Trust here. One big headline for the Weekend Trust. And it simply says, a bloody gold unraveling link between mining and banditry. I said it. I've always said it. Every single time there's a case of banditry in any part of the country, especially in the north, I always say, what exactly is the root cause? Could it be any material or rather mineral? And I'm glad that this is making headline for the Daily Trust Weekend Trust. That's all on the Daily Trust. My work is done. Moving on to the next headline. What do you have, Judith?
Let's move on now to Daily Independent. And the very first big headlines there is a war against multi-billion naira oil bunkering may yield no results without enforcement. That story, that report is a report there. The bottom there is politicians, oil workers, security operatives, syndicates, economists, refined PMS smuggled into neighboring countries sold at cheaper rates, industry experts. You can find the story on page 8. At the bottom there, retired Supreme Court Justice urging sans other fault indecent dressing by lawyers, and that is on page 19. 80,000 naira minimum wage proposal in Rivers, fictitious. Governor Fubara clarifies, and he goes on to say advises workers to discountenance misleading news. That story is on page 4. Crime rate reducing, IGP boasts as Tinubu meets security chiefs. That story is on page 19. But somehow somebody was allegedly raped, essayed inside a police station. Interesting. At the bottom there, Northern Coalition raises the alarm, says revolution, looms in Nigeria. Alleges Tinubu's economic team worst since 1999. Accuses presidency of adopting trial and error approach. That story is on page 3. At the bottom there, APC accuses Edo CP of complicity in attack on tribal party Guba candidate. That story is on page 7. On their entertainment scene there, many still perceive talent, creative products out of Africa as inferior. Tell me about it. And that's from starlets there and screen goddess Dakore Egboson. You can find the story on page 9. At the top there, Otuare has ensured paradigm shift at PAP INC. We're proud of his innovative leadership skills, says group. That story is on page 4. I don't want to be famous, filmmaker Uyuye Adia. And that story is on page 15. And somehow you're on the front page of a newspaper.
Moving on now to the Guardian newspaper for the weekend here. Big headline that hits you, even if it's at the bottom. Ali Ndume travails of a vocal parliamentarian. This story was very interesting yesterday to hear or see, if you, depending on the platforms you saw it. Removed as chief whip and over criticizing what they called, or the way they put it, the phrase we used was criticizing the Tinubu government. However, I think he was talking about renovations, poor renovations at the House. Interesting read there. You might want to find that on The Guardian. At the top, the Acquire LG polls intrigue as APC PDP plots to test strength, and how barriers to accessing free treatments, stigmatization impede quest to end HIV/AIDS by 2030. To the side of the big headline there, FCCPC fines Meta $220 million for data breach, other offenses in Nigeria on page 2. Abuja court stops INEC from releasing voters register for Rivers LG elections. Right under that, crime rates reduces. IGP boasts Tinubu meets security chiefs on page 3. Do you agree, I wonder? And time to grab opportunities in livestock noise. A very interesting back page read there. And inside of Life for The Guardian, you would find a very interesting piece on Wole Soyinka, the lion himself. Of course, well, that's all for the weekend, Guardian. What other headlines do we have from what papers, Judith? Do we have any more?
We're moving away from the Guardian now. The Guardian weekend. We move on to our very next one. And I think that's all the headlines we can take. All the front pages we can take for this morning. Now we switch gears, and this time we bring you our first big story for today. And this time it's going to be all the way to Kano, a second-class emirate. We'll find out after the break. Join us again.
And you're welcome back. Now, in a bold move that's set to reshape the traditional governance landscape of Kano State, Governor Abba Yusuf has signed into law the Kano State Emirate Council Establishment Bill 2024. Now, this landmark legislation introduces a new tier of traditional leadership, creating second-class emirate councils in Rano, Gaya, and Karaye The move is being hailed as a strategic step to bridge the gap between grassroots communities and the state government, while simultaneously preserving the rich cultural heritage of the region, they say.
Now, the new law craves out specific jurisdiction for each of these newly established emirate councils, with Rano overseeing Rano, Kabir, and Bokuri local government areas, Gaya taking charge of Gaya, Albasi, and Ajingi, and Karaye is proceeding over Karaye and Rongo. Now, these reconstructuring aims to create a more localized approach to traditional governance, with each council empowered to advise the Emir of Kano on crucial matters such as maintaining public order and resolving boundary disputes within their designated areas.
Now, however, this development doesn't come without its share of controversy. After all, this is Nigeria. It follows on the heels of Governor Yusuf's controversial decision in May to dethrone Emir Aminu Ado Bayero and reinstate Emir Muhammadu Sanusi II, a move that sparked legal challenges in the state. Now, as Kano navigates these changes to its traditional institutions, many are watching closely to see how this new governance structure will impact the delicate balance of power between modern state administration and centuries-old cultural leadership. The announcement of the second-class emir promised for a later date is eagerly anticipated and sure to be a topic of intense discussion in the coming weeks.
And so to start that conversation, we're going to be discussing the matter further, and we're honored to be joined by the National Publicity Secretary of the New Nigeria People's Party, Mr. Ladipo Johnson, and he joins us live in the studio. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for
Good
joining
morning,
us.
sir. Good to have you here.
Yeah.
Judith, please begin.
Yes. First of all, I'd like to say thank you so much for joining us. And a new structure for a second-class emirate is very interesting to hear. When people hear that, be like, what does this mean? What is this? So I'd like for you to sort of define this new structure of the Kano Emirate as it is now. You know, it's not moving. What it would be from now on, the hierarchy and the devolution of responsibilities and powers within this new structure.
Well, when I heard as well, I asked the same question. I was in Abuja when I heard it. I called the DG publicity, media and publicity of the governor, and he was boarding a flight. And I said to him, I said, what have you done again, you know? And he was like, oh, what happened, you know? And we spoke about it and laughed about it. And then I asked one of the leaders from Kano, and he tried to explain to me. The good thing is that because of the issues that happened in the last few months regarding the Emirates, they decided to look at the whole thing thoroughly. And apparently, even before we had constitution and what have you, these three lesser emirates existed. And so what they now felt was, apart from the getting it to the grassroots and whatever you in your introduction, what they felt was that, okay, let's, because of all that has happened, they're all district heads as well. Now they have 44 district heads, as in local governments. Mm-hmm. And they decided that these three, traditionally, were slightly, I don't want to say more powerful, higher elevated than the district heads. And so they now brought this back. That is Rano, Karaye, and Gaya, as you said earlier. So that is what informed it, is within the context of their history, way even before the constitutions we're talking about, the 79 Constitution.
As a member of the NNPP, question I'd like to ask, and I'm sure plenty of people are also asking this question regarding the fact that there is this argument that the introduction of the second-class emirates is actually a plot to dilute the power of the central emirate itself. What do you say to that?
It isn't. They still report to the Emir of Kano. It's as simple as that. That's why it's called second class. Now there's only one first class. Now this is different from when we had 5, presumably first class emirates, and majority of the people didn't want that. The issue at that time wasn't just the fact that Emir Sanusi was removed by Ganduje's administration. It was also the breaking down of that one emirate that had been over 1,000 years into 5. A lot of them didn't want it, and it became a campaign issue.
But was it so important to do this, to try and reach the grassroots? Because that's the, I don't want to use the word excuse, but that's the explanation that's been given.
Yes.
Where they know other possible mechanisms to actually reach the grassroots, and why now, out of all times, especially from everything that's been happening since the start of the year between Bayero and Sanusi?
Exactly. Why not now, though?
You're asking back.
You see, that's why I said that I believe that they looked at all the trouble, the crisis, past few months, that look, let us just sort this out once and for all. You know, we're doing this, and let us, these people also are not, look, even if we feel that they're wrong, if government feels that some people are wrong, you still have to listen to those small voices. Why did they do this? Why, you know, are they kicking back? And then you now say, okay, maybe let's go back to the historical position. And these 3 ones, especially, apparently, their way out, not within the metropolis and everything. Let's give them a bit more, not autonomy, but, you know, so I think that is, it's, I mean, as a politician and as a publicity secretary of the party, I was, oh God, why now? You understand?
Yeah.
But then looking at it, yeah, why not now?
Now, we understand there was a fire outbreak at the Emir's palace, and we would love that we have you in the studio. Can you speak more as to the outbreak, what happened, and just
what
everything that could have caused the fire?
I don't know, actually. I actually read somewhere that said maybe arsonists, I'm not sure. I do not know. Honestly speaking, I do not know. I didn't go into that. I just saw that, yes, there was a fire outbreak, but it didn't burn down the whole palace or whatever. So I didn't concentrate on it.
Were there any valuables inside? Say, for example...
I wouldn't know.
Well, let's away from the fire now. Let's talk about the economic perspective of this. A second-class emirate. Do you think that this restructuring of the traditional leadership might impact business and commerce in Kano State, particularly in this newly designed or designated restructuring?
I'm sure that they would hope so. They would hope that these new minor emirs will even bring in more to their own rural areas, as it were. Government is always looking to ensure that areas in its state develop, if not as much as the metropolis, but at a reasonable pace. So I think that there are advantages that they feel they would get from doing this at this time. As I said, why now?
We're back here again. Let's talk about this chieftaincy versus governance issue here. We've seen the influence of governments, the Kano State government, in the establishment of the emirates itself, the second-class emirate, or whether or not who not gets the throne. Let's talk about heritage.
Yes.
Is there not too much influence from the government in matters that should be strictly chieftaincy, especially in the case of Kano? We saw that almost happening in Sokoto as well, if I'm not mistaken. Why is there so much influence, and many would use the word interference, in these chieftaincy matters?
This is a germane question, and it is something that should be at the back of the minds of those we have in the House of Representatives and the Senate. A true republic, when I was doing my constitutional law, a true republic should not have any chieftaincy. It should be like the United States of America. Every man is equal. That is a true republic. But in Nigeria, we have a mixed, you understand. You remember that even before independence, or at the early stage, we had a House of Chiefs, just like you have the House of Lords in the UK. This was removed from the 79 Constitution, didn't appear in the 99 Constitution either. But people are now saying that shouldn't there be a proper role for the chieftaincy institution? And, to what you said, shouldn't we find a way to ensure that the political interference is reduced? Because you see, the bottom line is this: you cannot become a Bale, let alone an emir or a chief or an Alafion for Oyo or whatever, without the government getting involved. They give you the staff of office. You have all these chieftaincy declarations for all the chieftaincy houses, order of rotation, all these things you have goes through the Ministry of Chieftaincy Affairs or local governments or what have you. So strictly speaking, and that is why, let me just throw a punch here, that is why people keep saying, what has the Federal High Court got to do with this business? It's, you know, it's, in fact, it should even be the local government. It's just that people look at it that I cannot be telling the Emir of Kano or the Oni of Ife to go to his local government chairman. He should be able to come to the governor. You understand what I'm saying? So we have to look at the constitutional framework. When these things happen, it's important that as you settle it, we look forward vis-a-vis the development of the country. And they do have a role to play, I think, I believe. They have a role to play. So I urge those in the Senate and the House of Representatives to look at the Constitution again as we move forward over this issue.
Well, there have been talks about constitutional reforms, and I'm sure that maybe that would also come up during the course of this entire process of reforming the Constitution. But we're running out of time, so finally I have this question for you. I mean, given the legal challenges that this whole emirate change and changes has plagued the state as well, with this new restructure, do you foresee any potential legal or social obstacles implementing this new emirate structure in the future? And if not, how best do you think it can be implemented and addressed to make it as smooth as possible, the entire transition process?
Well, let me start with the implementation. One of the emirates, I don't know which one now, whether Rano or what have you, is the same person that was removed a few months back by the governor that has returned. You know that there were 5 and they were all removed. 4 have gone peacefully, and one, he had gone. He allowed himself to be brought back and used by the opposition in Kano. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, I think that it is in Kano at the moment, because, yes, I'll even go further to say in Kano and Rivers at the moment, you cannot say anything is straightforward, because it seems there's some people there who just want to make governance difficult. Ordinarily, there should be, you saw, I mean, well, you might not have seen, they welcomed them and what have you in their various areas. So it's peaceful, but one can never tell if there'll be some instigator or some form of instigating people to rise up against it. So I wouldn't be so bold as to say, no, it's going to go peacefully.
So you foresee a legal thing going on?
Well, I hope not. I don't foresee it, but it is a possibility given what we have. I actually said to someone asked me that, okay, if this is resolved, what do you think will happen? I said there will be another crisis. Up until 2027, there will be crisis all the time, because it's no longer what is happening there. It is the fact that Rivers and Kano Rivers, Kano, Lagos, but Rivers and Kano bringing the highest votes for the presidential election. And so some people have decided that there should be no...
some people?
There should be no peace.
Who are the some people?
Those who would benefit from it. There should be no peace unless we are in control.
Who are those who are going to be benefiting?
The APC.
Anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What a way to round things up. Interesting.
Very interesting, but Mr. Ladipo.
I'll never shy away from that. My friends in the APC knew I'd say that even before you asked the question.
But Mr. Ladipo, we appreciate you for coming on. Thank you so much for doing this with us.
Have a lovely weekend.
Thank you as well, you too. And that was Mr. Ladipo Johnson. He is the National Publicity Secretary for the New Nigeria People's Party, NNPP, and he just came in here to share his insight on this significant development as it pertains Kano State's traditional governance structure. Well, that's all we could take for this discussion for this morning.
So as we wrap up on this discussion on Kano Emirates restructuring, let's turn our attention to a story that's making waves in the art world, or should I say barely causing a ripple. It's the University of Iowa Museum. They've decided to return 2 looted Benin artifacts. Yes, you heard me right.
Now, what we'll consider a groundbreaking move that's sending ripples through the art world. The University of Iowa Stanley Museum of Art has become the first U.S. institution to return looted Benin bronzes directly to the Abba of Benin. Now, this historical repatriation, which took place on July 15th in Benin City, Nigeria, saw 2 precious artifacts, a brass plate, and a wood and iron hand sculpture, finally making their way home after more than a century away.
Well, we should be happy, but let's just hold on that. Now, the return of these artifacts is not just a matter of cultural heritage, it's a powerful statement about rectifying historical wrongs. Now, these Benin bronze, among thousands stolen by British forces in the late 19th century, carry with them a weight of colonial violence and loss that, as Corey Gulach, curator of African art at the Stanley Museum, poignantly noted, can never be forgotten. The Abba of Benin, by the way, Awari II, emphasized both the spiritual and artistic significance of these pieces to the Benin Kingdom, highlighting the deep cultural wounds their absence has left.
Now, this repatriation raises crucial questions about the future of looted artifacts in museums worldwide. Now, while the Stanley Museum's decision is commendable, it also throws into sharp relief the vast number of Benin bronzes still held in collections across the globe. And what kills me is those that have it in personal collection as well. So, as we delve into this complex issue, we're honored to welcome guests joining us in the studio. First of all, we have joining us via Zoom, Victor Ehikhamenor. He's a renowned visual artist, writer, and photographer, award-winning, by the way, and world-renowned. Welcome to the program, Victor. We also have with us here in the studio Dr. Raphael James, Director General of the Center for Research, Information and Media Development and Curator at the CRIMMD Museum of Nigeria History.
Also, we have with us Dr. Adenkebelo Olarimoye. She is from the Lagos State University, and we want to welcome all our guests on the show this morning. Welcome, gentlemen. Welcome, lady. Good to have you here.
Good morning.
First of all, I want to ask, let's start ladies first, if you don't mind. Good doctor, how excited are you about these artifacts being returned? And let's not talk about the number because it's a meager 2. But are you excited?
Yes, I'm excited.
Okay.
And yet I'm not excited.
Please, why?
I'm excited because artifacts speak to history of a people, to their civilization, and returning them would suggest that the people will have confidence in their history and that the people, their ancestors had been able to contribute meaningfully to the material world, to aesthetics, to environments, to technology, because some of these artworks, sculptures are also a product of a kind of technology. So it's going to also imbue the history of the people in the minds of those people. However, I'm not also excited because bringing them back will suggest that we want to put them into use. Maybe economic use because it's coming from a place that is being used for economic reasons. It may not have important values to them. Maybe it doesn't have any other values than aesthetics and the economy. They're able to make money out of it.
Yes.
But bringing them here, are we going to present them? Are we just going to put them somewhere, house them somewhere without them being, brought to the public for shows, for curation, exhibitions and for education and for making money? Essentially, all of these materials, when they come, it's not the first time we'll be having repatriated artifacts. It started right from the period, I guess, Ogbeni Raphael James was the governor of Kano State. And we had some of them repatriated.
Right.
Have we seen them in the public? Have they been exhibited for the people to see? Are they making money, profit on them? That is the issue.
All right. Now, let me switch gears now and ask Mr. Ehikhamenor, who is joining us live video chat. Many thanks again for being so gracious and being with us from the top of the hour. You're an artist that is deeply connected to your Benin cultural heritage, and even your work reflects your cultural heritage as well. So I'd like to ask you about how you see this repatriation impacting the contemporary art scene in Nigeria, and what role can artists play in the ongoing efforts to reclaim looted artifacts?
Thank you for inviting me. It's a great, it's been great to have some of these things started coming back or trickling in, even though they are quite a few numbers. The percentage of works that are being returned are still quite small. We can't overemphasize the fact that their return is not just only for artistic reasons, for spiritual reasons as well, and also an encouragement and an ability for us to be able to see that our ancestors created things that were great, So the last was speaking only from the point of view of economic benefit, but we forget that these things have really high-end spiritual connotation to the places they were taken from. So we must always remember that. And you have to also look at history and figure out where these things taken. You understand? They were taken from the inner sanctuary of the palace, So in that case, we must take that into cognizance when we're having these conversations. Again, for the contemporary artists in Nigeria or Africa, it's a big welcome development for us to be able to see that the things that were taken from us forcefully and in a bloodbath are getting returned.
And how do you see this impacting contemporary art as well, and artists as well? Do you see them also clamoring for more repatriation of our artifacts that have long been gone for centuries?
I mean, contemporary artists have been working over the years, you understand. If we actually look at it, I have been on this matter for a very long time. Irabo Emokpale of Blessed Memory has been on this matter since the 70s, which led to the use of the Idia mask as our insignia for Festac 77. So there is great impact it's going to have on us. And now we are going to begin to draw, because the Western museums have over the years not kind of created a link between what came before and what is now. You go to certain Western museums and all you see is some of these things that are looted. Then you are wondering, did Africa artists, did Nigerian artists, did the Benin artists stop creating works? So the question now is that it's shifting the focus, it's recentralizing what came before and what is still ongoing, because we never stopped creating. So some of the Western museums are beginning to now shift focus and also look at what is happening. So for instance, if somebody brings this artifact to Benin, there's the possibility that they will visit Igu Street. There's the possibility they will visit private studios. There's the possibility that they will visit private artists to see that things are still ongoing, that artists did not stop making works when colonialism ended.
I'm going to bring us back to the studio here, and I'm going to turn to you, Dr. James. Dr. James, Dr. Adeyinka mentioned something. I think also Victor also mentioned the same thing. These artifacts being returned to Nigeria, how exactly, as a museum curator yourself, how exactly are they going to be put into use? How are they going to be reintegrated? I'm going to warn you that we're going to go on a very short break, but I'd like you to begin your answer to that question first.
Okay, for me, from my own perspective as a curator, like you mentioned, integrating them depends on where they are going to. For example, now we have 2 artworks that have been repatriated, and they were taken straight to the Oba of Benin's palace, so I read. Now the point is this, the palace has the right to determine what they want to do with it. If they decide they want to put it in the National Museum Benin, for example, it's good for them. If they want to return it within the palace and probably create a museum within the palace. Of course, there's an existing museum in the palace, the Benin Palace. I've actually visited it. They might want to make it something a little bit bigger so that more people can come in. You know, for me, I got excited when I saw the news because looking at it this way now, about 160 international museums across the world have artworks from Benin Kingdom. And Germany, for example, have about 1,100 artworks within their premises, within their country. And imagine if we have all these things coming back to Nigeria. Again, I also understand, just like my colleague here said, we also have to be a little bit worried about how much we're going to preserve those things because, like I said, Nigeria presently have about 54.
Dr. James, I warned you from before, we might need to take a very short break, but I want you to keep that thought because we're still going to visit it when we get back. It's very interesting and very important that we know. Let's take a short break, and when we come back, we're still going to be discussing about the returned artifacts to the Oba of Benin. We'll be back. Welcome back. We're still discussing Bring Back Our Arts. We have in the studio here Dr. Adeyinka, Dr. James, and of course Victor Ehikhamenor is on Zoom with us. We've been discussing how these 2 artifacts have been returned by the University of Iowa Museum to the Oba of Benin and how they can be put to use. Before we went on that short break, I was asking Dr. James exactly how these integrations would happen, and I wanted to add, are we sure of their preservation? Because I've been to museums and I've been to heritage sites, and the poor, deplorable situations or a state that I've seen some of these materials are very, very sad.
And that was one of the concerns that was raised when the conversation about bringing back our arts was artifact. Many of these curators and those who were in the Western museums were saying, oh, we don't have the resources or the capacity or facilities to be able to maintain this artifact or preserve them. What do you say to that?
Now, let the fact be told. Nigeria have about 54 museums and monuments across the country. I've visited about 35 of them. I've seen what is there, and realistically speaking, it's not as if we cannot improve. Of course, we can improve on it, but what is on ground presently, we might not be able to manage these artifacts and preserve them properly. That is just the reality. But again, we can actually improve on it. Most of the national museums across the country have most of their artifacts in the store. Pray you don't get to see what is kept in the store and how they are preserved in the stores. Honestly, you feel discouraged. But having said that, these are our properties. They belong to Nigeria. They have to come back to Nigeria, whichever way we want to do it. It is now left for us here to now find out how we can do the preservation. I want to give an example. Let me just cut off a little bit. Just yesterday, somebody drew my attention. Somebody made a post on Facebook, and another person commented mentioning my name. I should check it out. Now, this guy had gone to a mechanic workshop to repair his car, and he said over the years, he have always noticed the mechanic had this toolbox. But just yesterday, he had to look closer to the toolbox and discover that on top of the toolbox is written FEDECO. FEDECO box that was used in the 1978, 79 election. That is what he's using. In a sane society, that needs to be preserved, not as a mechanic box. And immediately I reached out to him. I said, please, I don't know how much it's going to cost, but I'm interested in keeping it in my museum. I run a private museum, and for crying out loud, I know what it takes me to put that place in order. And I believe if we set out to do this, we can actually, it's not as if we can't preserve these things. We have the capacity to preserve it. But you know, these formalities of government things, civil service kind of work, attentions are not paid to them. But it's high time we have to start working to preserve those things for the generations yet to come.
Right. Victor, let me come to you because you've been very quickly. We need to take our headline news, the headline news on Breakfast Extra. When we come back, we will wrap up this conversation with a nice bow. So stay with us.
And you're welcome, and it's time for the news here on Breakfast Extra. My name is Mazino Appeal. Now we begin the news at this hour by telling you that the Joint Committee of the House of Representatives investigating arbitrary rise of cement price in the country has asked major producers in the industry to tender documents on cost production to justify the price of cement in the market. The committee resolved to visit production plants of the companies after going through their books to ascertain the cost of production with a view to determine a fair price to cement for all Nigerians. The chairman of the Joint Committee, Jonathan Gaza, made the demand on Friday at a public hearing while quizzing Dangote Cement Company and Lafarge Africa PLC in Abuja. He said that the committee is interested in the cost of production from 2020 to date that justified the current price of cement, which is over 10,000 naira in most parts of the country. Nigeria's House of Representatives has restated its commitments to ensuring that the nation's economy is repositioned on the path of sustainable growth and development through economic diversification. Now, the chairman of the House Committee on Monitoring, Evaluation and Implementation of the House of Representatives Legislative Agenda made this known in the nation's capital, Abuja, saying that the parliament has made several interventions aimed at addressing Nigeria's dwindling economic fortunes. He says that lawmakers will continue to engage relevant stakeholders to ensure that citizens benefit from the nation's wealth and Nigeria becomes an economic hub on the continent.
With an enormous endowment of green, blue, and digital resources, Nigeria is potentially positioned to serve as the green, blue, and digital hubs of Africa. As you are aware, the National Assembly has, in pursuant to its constitutional mandate, made a number of interventions, both at plenary and committee levels, towards the resolution of our national economic challenges. While these interventions are indeed yielding positive results, the need for a strategic stakeholders' engagement, collaborations, and contributions in this regard cannot be overemphasized.
Still more. Before the current agreement was reached, negotiations between Nigeria's government and organized labor had consistently faced impediments, with both sides presenting differing estimates for the minimum wage. With the deal finally agreed for a new 70,000 naira national minimum wage for Nigerian workers, New Central correspondent Igbalani Omoni analyzed the implications and expectations for minimum remuneration to be paid to Nigerian employees.
After a long, drawn-out disagreement over what amount would be appropriate, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has approved a new minimum wage of 70,000 naira for Nigerian workers. The new minimum wage represents a 133% increase from the current 30,000 naira minimum wage approved in 2019. At 70,000 naira per month, a Nigerian worker would earn roughly 3,500 naira per 8-hour day or 438 naira per hour, assuming a 5-day work week. In 2019, 30,000 naira could buy roughly $83 worth of goods at the official exchange rate of 360 naira to the dollar. However, in 2024, at an estimated exchange rate of 1,600 naira to the dollar, 70,000 naira will now only buy around $43.75 worth of goods and services. This means the new minimum wage, despite being higher in naira terms, may not go as far in purchasing power.
The Mr. President have already given a seal to what we are saying, that okay, it cannot go beyond 70,000, except if we increase minimum fuel pump price again. We know the pains and the agony that we are going through as a result of the first subsidy removal, which we are still battling with. So to now overstretch the battle and will not become an endless battle, so the leader have to retreat and say, okay, let's take what is available for now as Oliver Twist. And the take home now is that the year of review has been reduced from 5 to at least 3 years.
A pressing question on the issue is, will the new minimum wage be a challenge for the private sector to implement?
The private sector, the entrepreneurs, we are ready even to pay more than 200,000 naira to our workers. Only if the enable environment is being given to us. If government can provide power and provide a soft loan or grant to people like us, I want to tell you, we can pay even 300,000 naira.
While the higher minimum wage is intended to help Nigerian workers cope with rising inflation, the ability of businesses to pay remains to be seen.
The way it usually operates, when there's an increase of minimum wage like this, there's a corresponding increment across all levels within the civil service. So with states that are currently in salary, to what extent can we say confidently that they'll be able to pay this minimum wage?
For now, President Tinubu has pledged to review the National Minimum Wage Act every 3 years to keep up with economic conditions. However, implementing the new minimum wage of 70,000 naira will be the immediate test that needs to be passed. In Lagos 4 News Central, Igbalani Omani.
Now to security matters. Nigeria's Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Taoreed Lagbaja, has honored 3 soldiers from Operation Hadin Kai for their exemplary bravery in confronting insurgents and facing adversities at the front lines. General Lagbaja reaffirmed the Army's commitments to restoring peace in the northeast and other regions of the country, emphasizing the role of stability in fostering economic growth and development. News Central, Sumaru Kirawa completes the report.
The battle against terrorism that has troubled Nigeria persists, with armed forces implementing diverse strategies across the country. It was a special dinner to celebrate gains made at the front lines by armed forces after completing the dry season operations in the enclaves of terrorists. The night was also dedicated to fallen heroes, with a minute silence for the departed who paid the supreme price.
Today also affords us the opportunity to present the upper letters to the 3 beneficiaries of the affordable housing option for soldiers and who are so short, as a means of encouraging all our soldiers in the theater to key into this laudable initiative by the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General T.E. Lagbaja, Nigerian Army Medal. I also wish to appreciate you all for your patience throughout, and also point out that NCOs and senior NCOs remain the backbone of any professional army. And you have a lot of role to play in ensuring that our young soldiers are brought up properly.
The soldiers beam with pride as they witness the presentation of housing awards to 3 of their own in recognition of their outstanding efforts in counterinsurgency operations. The event also provided an opportunity for troops and military officers to exchange their experiences from the field, furthering their shared goal of ensuring stability and peace in the region.
Each of these soldiers that were presented have been had a 3-bedroom flat offer letters, so in Abuja. So now it's for all of them to see that the welfare scheme initiated by the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General T.A. Lagbaja, Nigerian Army Medal, is yielding fruition. Most of other soldiers that benefited were presented their offer letters during the recently conducted Nigerian Army Day celebration in Jos. So our soldiers have the opportunity for them to be presented with their own offer letters today.
The fight against terrorism persists, while citizens remain hopeful for the long-awaited era of lasting peace. In Maiduguri for News Central, Umaru Kirawa.
The National Bureau of Statistics says vote buying increased by 5% in the 2023 general elections released on July 11th. The NBS reports titled Corruption in Nigeria, Patterns and Trends, a third survey on corruption as experienced by the population, said the elections recorded 22% of vote buying, which is 5% higher than the 2019 general elections with 17%. The agency disclosed that 22% of Nigerian citizens reported that they were personally offered money in exchange of a vote before or during the 2023 general elections, which 9% were offered another favor. It described vote buying as an act of offering money, goods, or other favors in exchange for a voter's vote in an election. And that's it for the news this hour. Do stay tuned. There's still more coming your way. Plenty of analysis inside of Breakfast Extra.
And you're welcome back. From earlier, we had a conversation about art repatriation as the hashtag Bring Back Our Art continues. The University of Iowa has returned looted artifacts, Benin artifacts, back to Nigeria and was officially handed over to the Abba of Benin. And in the studio with us, joining us live via Zoom, is Victor Ehikhamenor. He's an artist and renowned writer as well. And also joining us in the studio is Dr. Adeola, who is the HOD of the Department of Tourism for the Lagos State University, as well as Dr. James. He's also a curator, and they're here with us in the studio. Before the break, we were talking about curating the art as well as preserving the artifact, whether or not Nigeria has the facility to preserve this artifact. And now we switch gears, all right, to talk more about this. And let me come to you, Victor, and first of all to say thank you. We understand that this has been handed over to the Abba of Benin. All the artifacts have been handed over to the Abba of Benin. But there are some conversations that are saying that, you know, some critics argue that it should not have been to him. It should have been with him. It might just be in the personal archive or artifacts of the royalty, instead of it being, you know, displayed for public, you know, being used to teach history and for business development. It might just go into personal collection, so to speak. But what is your thoughts on this? Do you think that they should be the rightful custodian, or do you think that this should have been given to proper curators who can be able to preserve and display this for exhibition and for historical tutelance?
Thank you, Judith. I think a lot of people don't have a background history of what these objects were and where they were taken from. And I think it's good that they are re-engaging with the community again for the way they are being re-engaged with the community right now. And a lot of people also forget that the Western Museum's argument up until recently were, oh, where are these things going back to? Who are the owners and all of that? It was kind of like shifting their argument up and down. And we're able to tell them that the place where these objects were taken from still exists. You know, so for those that are able to like bring it back and return it to where they belong, they need to be reintroduced into the system where they were taken from. Like I said earlier, we are taking out the spiritual aspect of these bronze works that were taken, these artworks that were taken from the palace, and they were taken from the inner sanctuaries of the palace, and they served more purpose than you can ever imagine and that has ever been revealed to the general public. So if that is the way that is going to come into the country, that is totally fine by me. And let the Abba of Benin decide in his own rights what he wants to do with them, who he wants to give them to as for teaching. Some are for teaching and some are not for teaching. You have to realize that. So we must not negate that, and we must not sweep that under the carpet. You know, there are a lot of people, there are a lot of critics that don't know what these things meant to the Benin people, to the Edo people, and what roles they play in our cosmology. You know, so we must never sweep that under the carpet.
Yeah, Victor, in discussing repatriation and all of the lost meaningful, the lost meanings to all these artifacts, one must also put into context how this was taken and the lives that were lost as well. Do you see this conversation shifting from just bringing back our art to now repatriation about the lives that were lost during that time in looting and pillaging this artifacts and pressured belongings of the people of Benin?
I think it's a starting point. This is actually a starting point to even start from the physical objects, because the human loss that the Edo people experienced cannot be quantified. You know, so at some point that conversation needs to be had. And one of the biggest conversations we are not having right now are who owns the rights to the digital images that were taken of these works, because I'm working on a book right now, and for me to use any of these old works, I have to take rights from some of these museums that own them, and I'm from Nigeria, I'm from Edo State, and you know, so there are multiple things that need to be like unbundled in this matter of restitution and repatriation of the works. You know, so at some point somebody has to spearhead that and say, look, there were lives lost, and how do we account for those? And it's the British that we have to definitely point that finger to see how we can do that. The British Museum is still very much holding on to their works, and we have not even started having that conversation. They have not started shifting their ground on retaining these works and retain and explain. So we need to also we have a long way to go. We have a lot of fights to do for these works to be returned. So and we also have things to do at home to make sure that these works come to the rightful owners and come to the rightful places.
Okay, then, Victor. Let me bring it back to you, Dr. Adeyinka. Now, it's not the first time we've had it's not the first time that we've had repatriated artwork back to Nigeria. A few years ago, if I'm not mistaken, the Goethe Institute actually talked about the return of a couple of artifacts to Asue State. But we don't get to hear as much about these other artifacts. We only get to hear mostly about the Benin artifacts. I'm wondering why this is there's such a disparity.
Well, the Benin are making huge noise about the return of their artifacts than the Yorubas are doing. I guess the Yoruba will also have to learn from the Edo people to understand the importance of their artworks, their artifacts, because these are historical facts about the people. I guess Edo became emotional about their own artifacts, considering the manner they were taken out of Edo, the Benin city and the palace specifically. Maybe the Yoruba people, some of them had rooted them themselves. I don't know the narrative, the history, the context. But obviously, the contexts are different. However, as a culture expert, I guess all material culture like that should be made available to the people. I understand the perspective of the doctor who just spoke now, Victor. From Edo, you can see that it will be more emotional. Me, I'm just thinking of how these materials will help drive the economy of Edo people and Nigeria as a whole. And I know that spirituality is also involved in some part of these artifacts. It's also something that is amusing me, because this is a Nigeria that, as at 1977, the First Dark period, people, Christians and Muslims, were even kicking against that particular festival, seeing it as a gathering of Orisha worshipping, paganism, and the rest, and is increasingly becoming even unusual in the current Nigerian society, where Christians see all these materials as being fetish, as being trying to bring back our Orisha to the space, to the social space. So it's becoming even more interesting that when we are talking of material culture, people cannot separate them from your actual culture, your non-material culture, such as religion. I was in Saudi Arabia for the last Hajj, and I saw the Medina people building a museum. What are they going to put in the museum, if not the Saudi Arabian and Medina history in materials, isn't it? But we don't understand this
the aspect of tourism.
Yes, it's an aspect of tourism. It will also drive tourism. Tourism gives almost 70%
the commerce, yes, exactly, and that's the commerce.
To other countries.
I want to talk about the commerce now. Victor highlighted the fact that pictures have been taken of these artifacts, and that the rights to these pictures belong to the foreign museums. But these are Nigerian artifacts. Dr. James,
you're a curator.
You're a curator. So how does this annoy you? Is this something that bothers you?
Well, sincerely speaking, what I do in my museum is when I see some of these photographs that are actually taken from artwork that belongs to Nigeria and credit are given to foreign museums. When I put them in my museum, I give credit to where they come from in Nigeria. That is what I do. And I keep saying, come and hold me responsible. You can't come to my house and take something from my house, take it to your place, and not tell me that it belongs to you. It's not yours. It's mine. You took it from my place. So, and I think, yes, that is something we have to actually rectify. I've seen pictures, people take some photographs that were even taken to the First Act 77, and somebody will give credit to another museum outside the country. How did you do it? Didn't you come to Nigeria to take it? So these things happen here that belongs to us. I don't think they have the right over this right over those photographs that have been taken, because there's a source where they are taken from.
I mean, we're out of time, right? And we've talked about repatriation, we've talked about preserving, we've talked about display, we've talked about the commerce, all sides of it. But there is still so much out there in numbers that we don't know about, from the Nok culture, from the Igboala culture, from the Igbo. So how can we get it back?
Let me tell you something. I think about 4 years ago, somebody reached out to me on social media and sent a lot of photographs of Nigerian artworks that are over 200 years old. They are in Italy. And he asked, will you want to buy them? I said, yes, I'm interested in buying them. But I have a challenge. Even if I pay you money, I transfer money to you in Italy, how do you bring it down to Nigeria? The customs will seize it at the airport. Yes. And once they seize it, the Nigerian government is going to take it away from me. So how do I defend that these are not stolen items? Because he was telling me that his great-grandfather was a seller. He came to Nigeria in 18-something and he bought those things. I asked, is there a proof that they were bought? Is there evidence, any documented evidence? He said, how do you expect me to keep? He's a white guy. He's an Italian. He said, how do you expect me to keep it? I said, well, that is the only condition that's going to make me to show interest in buying them. Because I don't want to buy something that at the time I ship it into the country, they will not seize it back from me. So there's a whole lot of work that needs to be done. There's a whole lot of preservation work that needs to be done. This is our history, and if we don't keep our history, nobody's going to keep it for us. And that's actually a challenge we're having. The foreigners come, take our history, write our history for us, and send it back to us, and we just believe in it. And things keep going wrong.
Obviously, there's so much that needs to be done. There's preservation, restoration, repatriation,
restitution,
all of that.
Commerce as well. Victor, many thanks for coming on. We appreciate you for doing this with us. And lastly, many more of the Benin heads that we have there. You mentioned British Museum. Do you think that the Oba of Benin will now maybe take a more, should I say, attention, or more, I'm looking for intentionality in repatriating those, or start the conversation or the talks to bring back more of this artifact, especially the museums in the UK?
I would say that the palace has never stopped asking, because you have to kind of look at Oba Akingbolu in 1932 when he asked. The palace has never stopped asking. I mean, there will be more concerted effort now from the palace, from the individuals, from Edo people to return these works. And the fact that museums are getting built in Benin right now, the Royal Museum is going to get built, Museum of West African Art is getting built. Even the Nigerian National Museum there is getting a facelift so that some of these things can be returned, you know. So again, there is more concerted effort now. There is more light that is being shared on these objects that are out there to be returned. Once again, the palace has never stopped asking. We have to look at history. Edo Akingbolu, who was a major journalist and a writer in the 60s and 70s, has written so much about this in the Nigerian magazine, you know. So again, some of the critics that we have in Nigeria have to actually go back to history and how much we have asked for these things. We have never not asked for the works that belong to the Edo people, that belong to the Benin people, and all of that, you know. So we need to get back to that mode, and I'm glad that we are beginning to get results from it right now. We just have to prepare for them, and we're already preparing for these things to be returned.
Victor, we want to say thank you. Thank you so much for being so kind and being patient and gracious with us and being with us from the beginning of the program. Many thanks again. Many thanks.
Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let me also be very thankful to you as well. Not just Victor. Thank you very much, Dr.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. James, for making it all the way down here to have this very important conversation about bringing back our art.
Thank you.
We absolutely enjoyed that one.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Now, coming up, a dramatic turn of events. Edo State politics has once again taken center stage with two major court rulings sending shockwaves through the state's political landscape. Details inside the next story. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Edo State, where in a stunning turn of events, the political landscape has been dramatically reshaped by two landmark court rulings. The Federal High Court in Abuja has delivered judgments that have sent shockwaves through the state's corridors of power, addressing both the contentious impeachments of Deputy Governor Philip Shaibu and the disputed candidacy of Dr. Asue Ighodalo for the upcoming gubernatorial elections. First, in a ruling that has been hailed as a victory for democracy and the rule of law, the court affirmed Dr. Asue Ighodalo's candidacy for the September 2024 governorship elections. This decision not only validates Ighodalo's position, but also upholds the credibility of the PDP's primary elections held on February 22, 2024 at the Samuel Ogbemudia Stadium in Benin City. Now, the People's Democratic Party has enthusiastically embraced this verdict, viewing it as a confirmation of their internal democratic processes and a reflection of the will of Edo State's citizens.
All right. Now, in a parallel development that has sent ripples through the state's administrative structure, Justice James Omotosho of the Federal High Court in Abuja voided the impeachment of Philip Shaibu as Deputy Governor of Edo State. Now, the court's decision, which ordered Shaibu's immediate reinstatement, was based on the failure of the Edo State House of Assembly to comply with due process during the impeachment proceedings. This ruling not only reinstates Shaibu, but also nullifies the appointment of his replacement and mandates the payment of his outstanding salaries and allowances. And so, the court's decision on Shaibu's case goes further, issuing a permanent injunction that bars Governor Godwin Obaseki and the Edo State House of Assembly from interfering with Shaibu's ability to carry out his duties as deputy governor. This protective measure ensures Shaibu's rights and responsibilities in office are safeguarded, marking a significant shift in the power dynamics within the state government.
So these twin rulings have ignited a firestorm of political activities and public discourse across Edo State. The PDP's celebration of the Ighodalo verdict contrasts sharply with the complex implications of Shaibu's reinstatement, setting the stage for a potentially tumultuous period in Edo politics. As this dust settles, questions arise about the long-term impact of these decisions on the state's governance and the upcoming gubernatorial race.
All right. And so to further, reach deeper into this development and discuss about their implications, we're honored to welcome three. It should have been three distinguished guests, but we only have two. We should have had a special advisor to the Edo State Governor on media projects, and that's Crusoe Osagie. But unfortunately, he turned down to attend this interview last minute, saying only him should be on the panel of discussion, which would be unfair when it comes to right of reply and journalists, something that Mr. Osagie knows very well, as he's a veteran in media and journalism. But to that effect, we have two people on our panel of discussion discussants this morning. We have Kabir Akingbolu. He's a respected legal practitioner. And we also have Honorable Andrew Emwanta. He is the Deputy Director of Publicity for the Edo State APC Campaign Council. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for joining us for this discussion this morning.
So
good morning.
Yes, good morning. Thank you very much. Now, Mr. Emwanta, let's start with you as you are with us on a line. Let's get your brief, please, if you can, take on the entire situation in Edo State, Shaibu's reinstatement, and also Ighodalo's candidacy being rightfully given back to him.
Yeah, thank you, and good morning to the hosts, my colleague on the other side, and to our viewers at home. I think I will prefer to start with the last, which has to do with Asue Ighodalo's candidacy, and to correct that very erroneous impression that has been created. And I can quickly tell you why that impression is erroneous. I was in court that day when that verdict was delivered on the issue of a certificate forgery case, right? What the court was to determine was whether Asue's forged voter's card, because we've gone past the issue of whether he forged his voter's card. It's a settled issue because when he was summoned by the court to give evidence, he refused to come. And remember, he has a criminal case of forgery at the Wuse Chief Magistrate Court, for which the court has directed the police to investigating. And so far, the report has not been returned to the court. So the civil case in court was the one for which the court gave verdict. What the court did was to decline jurisdiction, because the matter was brought under Section 29 of the Electoral Act, which allows an aspirant who is aggrieved that his fellow aspirants submitted forged documents on constitutional requirements. So I think what the court wanted to look at was the provision of Section 182, sub 1, paragraph I, that has to do with when you submit a forged certificate. The Constitution did not say if it's a birth certificate. It did not say if it's a school certificate, or if it is a voting certificate, which the voter's card is, because the voter card certifies that you are eligible to vote. So the lawyer, as I was informed, has already filed an appeal to now consider if
having forged a voter's card, that does not mean he has forged a certificate within the meaning of section 182, sub 2, paragraph I. So that is a big contention. And you must remember that just recently, Justice Ekwo of the Federal High Court delivered a decision, a final judgment concerning the PDP's ad hoc delegate congress, which the court invalidated. And as I speak to you, 4 appeals have been filed before the Court of Appeal. I'm not one of the lawyers handling the appeal, so I can comment on that judgment because by the grace of God, I was one of the lawyers involved in that case. So it is not right to say that Asue remains a valid candidate of the PDP when there are 4 appeals. It is for the Court of Appeal to decide. So this certificate or voters card forgery case, there's no way the court would have affirmed him because the court just declared jurisdiction. So as for the impeachment case, it's clear that the court has ruled and given the final verdict that Philip Shaibu remains the Deputy Governor of Edo State. And Crusoe walked out on the program yesterday. I saw that thing which has gone viral. Very rude. He was asked a simple question. Was there an application for stay? And he walked out on a live interview. That was very embarrassing. As Commissioner for Information, I was his boss. And I can tell you when he was talking about NBC rule, this is the same guy who, because of 10% NBC kickback, started having personal issues with me because I insisted that NBC dues should be paid directly to the remitter account, which I did. So when he was talking about reporting your TV station to NBC rules, that was just a case of somebody trying to be more Catholic than the Pope. We know all these dirty things they do. Why would you walk out on a national live TV? And he has refused to come today because he was one that spread that fake news that the courts affirmed Asue Ighodalo. And I think people like that should be sanctioned. He's not a journalist because he's a quack. If he's a journalist, the relevant authorities would have sanctioned him for some of all these hideous things he does.
Mr. Emwanta, you're making very heavy allegations. You just said that Mr. Osagie was the one who spread the rumor that the court affirmed Asue Ighodalo.
Exactly. Even when the impeachment decision was given, we were still in court when they said they had filed an appeal and a stay of execution. It was yesterday I got the certified true copy of the ruling. So how did they get, a document to file stay? Why did he walk out on your program yesterday? Because he was the one that issued that statement saying that there's a stay of execution. And I think he should, because I don't know who will sanction him because he's not a journalist. So I cannot be calling on the Nigerian Union of Journalists, or I cannot be calling on any other statutory body that his SM media does not qualify him as a journalist.
And thank you, Mr. Emwanta. Yes, you are correct. He actually did walk out on the HQ program here on News Central yesterday. Politics HQ yesterday evening. You are correct. However, let me bring my attention to the studio here where we have Mr. Kabir here with us. And I want to talk about the Shaibu instance now. 2 courts, 2 rulings. Shaibu has been reinstated, even if he has only just up until September to go. He's also been reinstated, and not only just back as the deputy governor, but with everything that he might have lost, his benefits, and also with police backing as well, and oddlies and all of that. However, what does that say for the political climate in Edo right now, since the PDP is still holding that they still have Godwill as their own deputy, as the deputy governor for Edo State? Well, what gives now, and what's going to happen with this disparity?
Well, I can tell you, first things first, on the issue of the impeachment saga, you see, when you see this kind of thing, law, that is why the law is there, and that's why the court is there. You understand? And when you want to impeach a governor or a president or a local government chairman and all that, there are procedures laid down by the Constitution. When you breach one of them, there is no how the impeachment will stand. And in most cases, in order to get a kind of pirate victory, the governors rush things. They don't want to know whether the procedure exists or not. That is why you can see in the country, thank God, to God be, I think I'm one of the good players in all these, in this kind of areas. Most of the election and the impeachment proceedings in Nigeria have been quashed by our court. If you look at the case of Inaleke, Inokoju and Adeleke, the impeachment of Ladoja, for 9 months he was impeached illegally. The court found out that they took the sitting out of the government house to the Rovers Hotel to go and sit there to make a pronouncement and impeach Ladoja. He was outside for 9 months. He went to court. The court reinstated him, but by the time he was reaching Supreme Court, it was almost time to pack up But he turned out to pack up. And Fidel, because I couldn't get this ticket for the second time. The former deputy governor of Bayelsa State under, what's the name of the former minister of petroleum, is a deputy too, was impeached. The impeachment was nullified because at the time the impeachment proceeding was going in court, was going on at the house, the court has already nullified, it was hearing cases. When he was already challenging his impeachment moves. The impeachment went on when the matter was still pending in court. The court nullified the impeachment. So many things like that. Fauci was impeached in 2006. Only in 2018 was he reinstated by the Supreme Court. Or 2019 in the governorship election. Now, when you look at all this, they will give notice, 14 days notice of impeachment to the deputy governor or governor or president as he called, deputy vice president as the case may be. He will have to respond within that period of time. You can't just give notice today and say respond tomorrow. But what the governor used to do is, well, yeah, do it quickly, I want him out of the way.
That was the case here.
That was the case here.
Now, if that was the case here, then what you're saying is that Obaseki's claim is then correct, where he says, even putting the 14 days notice aside.
There are a lot of,
He noted that he does not have faith in Philip Shaibu, and that's why he cannot continue to advocate for him
or have him as
deputy. Is he correct? What are, especially this matter of the section 188 when they say gross misconduct,
yes,
and it's so arbitrary. What exactly is section 188? What provision did he contravene? We are not being told.
Yeah,
what was it exactly?
You see, in section 188 sub 11 is tantamount to section, is another, the corresponding section for presidency is 143. 143, 11, 1 to 11. Sub 11 is the last on that section. When you look at that section, what you mentioned, if the governor or deputy governor is guilty of gross misconduct, unfortunately, from section 1 to the end to the schedule of the Constitution, there was nowhere gross misconduct was explicitly defined. So it's now left to whoever is in charge, who wants your head. You understand? It's a kind of subjective thing. And when you talk of subjectivity, there is no rationale for it. You just do whatever you like. I can remember vividly in year 2000, the Speaker of House of Assembly in Kano State was impeached because he was bleaching. They say it's gross misconduct. They was bleaching as a Speaker of the House of Assembly, and he was impeached based on that ground. So, to come to your question, the gross misconduct, you are not laying any hard fact before the tribunal or before the House of Assembly. You must lay your fact, whether violation of the Constitution, whether corruption, abuse of office, those things will qualify as abuse of office. But when you just say because you can't work with him, how does it come? The people voted for him, don't forget. It was not you who made him deputy governor. It was the people. Don't forget, during the time of Obasanjo, when he said Atiku joined, cross-carpeted or joined the AC then, ACN, he said, I have sacked you as my vice president. Atiku went to court. The Supreme Court said, no, you can't sack a vice president in a casual and cavalier manner like that. There are procedures under our laws. And once any of these procedures are breached, is breached, then automatically the impeachment becomes invalid and void.
Now, let me come to you. I'm going to come back to you and ask about the judgment, or rather the ruling now, and the court ordering that the deputy be paid his outstanding payment. I wonder what the process would be like in ensuring or compliance with the state government.
The issue is this: we have a problem with our law in Nigeria, generally, not only on this. When you want to enforce a court decision, there is nobody, no statutory body that can help you to realize the fruit of your labor. You have to send a letter to the police commissioner of the state or whatever. We have to approve for give you some police before you can enforce. I think the High Court or the courts of various states should have marshals, their own standard, a kind of group that can do that. So the police will have to help you, but I can tell you, as if practically speaking, the enforcement will not take place until when he has left the office. The only thing he'll be entitled to is to take his money, just like Ladoja did. The Ladoja was asking, having been illegally pushed out of office for 9 months, I want to spend 9 months. They said no, you can only take salary for those months. Your tenure cannot be investigated.
Let's switch gears now and turn our focus now to Honorable Emwanta, who is the Deputy Director for the APC campaign council. We're going on a very short break very quickly, but before we do that, let me quickly just ask you let me ask you on this very quickly, Honorable Emwanta. And the government or the Edo State government have said that they would maintain status quo and they're not going to return to the court ruling. What does this mean for the upcoming election and APC's involvement in the state, in the Edo State politics and governance terrain?
Yeah, before we go, let me just quickly say this, and before I give an answer to that question, I think my learned colleague has said something which I don't totally agree with when he said that there's no clear definition of the phrase gross misconduct under the Constitution. The Constitution does not end in the ouster clause in 188 sub 10. Sub 11 defines what gross misconduct is, and it's in two planes. First, it says it's a gross violation or breach of the Constitution, which gives the court the opportunity of interpreting that particular provision as the court did in the Shaibu's case. Or a misconduct, which in the opinion of the House, so it gives the House of Assembly a discretion. It is when that discretion is abused that first plaint, the court cannot interpret it, because when all is used in the statute, it has a disjunctive connotation. And just also correct the impression that the judgment needs to be implemented. Already, the Deputy Governor has resumed office. Yesterday, received the National Chairman of the APC, and he's operating from his office. He's discharging his official duties. The day before, immediately after the judgment, he'll restore, because the court said all his aides will be restored. He'll be appointed all his aides. And I know by next week, he has been invited to a meeting in Abuja. The court said he was never impeached. That's what the court said. He was elected by Edo people. He has a 4-year mandate like Obaseki. He was elected on a joint ticket. He's not an appointee. It is when he's an appointee, you will now say, the person who appointed him will now allow him to come back. The court ordered the Inspector General of Police to restore his security, which the Inspector General of Police have already complied with. When he went to Benin, it was the Commissioner of Police that received him. So that judgment has been implemented. So the people in Obaseki's government, particularly Crusoe, who is saying that there's no stay of execution. The evidence that there's no stay became obvious when Crusoe ran away from the program when he was asked that simple question, if that application of stay was granted.
The question that was asked, please, if you could please answer that. If the APC continues on their path and say, no, we're not going to adhere to this court ruling, what does it say for the elections coming in September?
And when you say the APC, are you referring to, can you just give me an understanding of that question?
The PDP is saying that they're not going to go on with the court ruling and they maintain status quo. Heading towards the elections, which is coming up in September, what does this mean for the electionary terrain, as well as the state's politics and the governance in the state for the APC?
They don't have a choice. It was INEC that was the first defender in that case. And I know very soon INEC will take out the name of the PDP candidates from its portal, because that's a practice. When there's a court order, it's usually the practice for INEC to take out the name of the candidates and they put court order in that space. So I know it's an administrative issue that INEC is dealing with. That was why they rushed to court to file for appeals. We remember in Zamfara what happened. In Rivers, it happened in Rivers. Just recently in Plateau, it happened. So Edo will not be an exception. So the election will hold if a candidate or its party fails to do the right thing. It will not prevent an election from holding. You have 16 political parties participating in the election, and PDP is just one out of the 16. In Plateau, did they not invalidate the primaries of all their House of Assembly members? And the tribunal eventually said PDP, the first runner of the APC was the one that now occupied the seats in the Plateau House of Assembly. So it's quite unfortunate because political parties have been advised to adhere strictly, by their rules, their constitution, and the Electoral Act. So it is the failure of this that has made PDP to be in this very bad situation. And of course, the chairman of the campaign council, the Adamawa State Governor, said it's a major setback. That word underlined, major setback.
Speaking of rules and adhering to due process, what is your stance on the PDP primaries that produced the Ighodalo? It's been found that there were irregularities with their primaries with different court rulings. But what is the APC stance on that, on their primaries?
I think I can assure you that before the end of next week, you will know the position of my party, the APC, on this. Because in the eye of the law, PDP does not have a candidate. and they will not participate in the election. And if you notice, they have stopped campaigning. That's why they have now resorted to violence. The APC candidate went to visit the Oba to congratulate him on those 2 artifacts that the University of Iowa, returned. On the 15th of July was when that artifact was returned. Remember, 2 days ago, the APC candidate was ambushed at the entrance of the Benin airport by agents sponsored by the Obaseki-led government. Why? Because he went to congratulate the Oba. So they are not in the race. The only thing they do is political violence. And I think the federal government must rein in these elements.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Unfortunately, we can't go any further because we are pressed for time and we have sports in the news coming up. I want to say thank you very much, Honorable Emwanta, and also Mr. Kabir for coming in. I was honestly, I really needed to ask about the rumors about a defection in the air that we've been hearing about, but unfortunately, we don't have time for that.
About
well, the Deputy Governor, we can call him that now, Mr. Shaibu himself. It's a rumor, but if that was to happen real quick, what would this mean?
No, if it happens, then while in the case of House of Assembly or legislators, he will lose his seat. There is no such provision for the governorship in that circumstance. And on the issue of misconduct that my learned friend talked about, I am still saying there is nowhere it was defined. He also said it, that if in the opinion of, which means a subjective test that we have there. So, and again, when you talk about the orders of court, it is neither here nor there, because if there is a stay against the judgment, INEC would be wrong to remove his name from the list.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kabir. And thank you very much, Honorable Emwanta. And that's as much as we can take for this discussion regarding the Edo politics, Shaibu versus Ighodalo, or rather not versus, but on the rulings that the court has proceeded to come forth with. Thank you very much, gentlemen, once again. Now do stay tuned, because coming up we have sports coming your way, and of course the news for after as we enter into our next hour.
Welcome back. You're still watching Breakfast Extra. Time to take you to the world of sport. We begin from athletics, where Nigeria's Paris 2024 Olympic medal hopeful, Tobi Amusan, she tested her surprising defeat at the Mike Holloway Pro Classic in Florida, as reigning U.S. collegiate champion Grace Shark swept away the victory in the convincing style. The world record holder in the women's 100 meters hurdle came in second place with a time of 12.60 seconds, just 1.7 seconds there in the milliseconds behind Stark's win time of 12.58 seconds. However, despite the loss for Amusa, she's still set to make a statement at the Paris Olympic Games, as she clocked an impressive 12.49 seconds to win the heat race, second fastest time this season behind her 12.40 seconds in Jamaica. Meanwhile, Nigeria's 100-meter runner Favour Ofili continued her winning form at the Mike Holloway Pro Classic in Florida to strengthen her readiness for the Paris 2024 Olympic Games. Ofili, running the women's 100 meters hurdle final, defeated her training partner Candice Hill at 11.07 seconds and also won the 200 meters, the women's event, to claim her second win in a domineering style, clocking 22.36 seconds, far ahead of Hill at 22.62 seconds. Also, she defeated Adija Hodge, who came in third. Moving away from that, in preparation for the 2024 Paris Olympic Games in women's basketball, Nigeria's D-Tigers were beaten, D-Tigress, I beg your pardon. They were beaten by Germany 77-63 in a warm-up game ahead of the Paris 2024 Games. The African champions, they ranked 12th globally by FIBA. They lost to 19th ranked Germany in the preparation game played at the Uber Arena in Berlin on Friday. The Tigers, who have won a record 4 consecutive women's Afro basket titles, are in a tough group for the Olympics. They are up against Canada, Australia and France in Group B of the women's basketball event. The African Giants begin their quest against familiar foes, Australia, on July 29, 2024. Having always struggled against the Aussies in competitive clashes, Nigeria is poised for a second consecutive appearance after participating at the Tokyo Olympic Games. Moving away from that to the grid right now, McLaren's Lando Norris, he outpaced world champion Max Verstappen of Red Bull to top the times in Friday's second free practice session, running hot conditions ahead of his weekend's Hungarian Grand Prix. The 24-year-old Briton, who trails the three-time champion by 84 points in the driver's title race, clocked a best time of 1 minute and 17.788 seconds to beat his friends and rival by 0.243 milliseconds in a tightly contested session. Carlos Sainz was third for Ferrari, 1/10 down ahead of improving Sergio Perez in the second Red Bull, as George Russell of Mercedes and Haas Kevin Magnussen, who is set to leave the team at the end of the year. Seven-time champion Lewis Hamilton, oh, where was he? He was hoping to claim a record increase in 9th Hungarian victory. He was 7th ahead of RB's Daniel Richardson. Of course, Jenna Ricciardo, I beg your pardon, Alex Albon of Williams, and two-time champion Fernando Alonso of Aston Martin. And that's it in the world of sport. I am Onyinyechi Obaro. Breakfast Extra continues. Over to you, Mazino.
I'll begin the news of this hour by telling you that global IT outage has caused chaos at airports worldwide, including Nigeria's Murtala Mohammed International Airport. Flights to the US, Europe, and other international destinations were delayed and cancelled. The glitch traced to a faulty software update affected Windows computers worldwide, disrupting businesses, banks, and healthcare services. At least 2,691 flights were cancelled globally, with airlines like United, Delta, Air France and KLM affected. Passengers were stranded and flights were rescheduled. The International Air Transport Association has urged travelers to check with airlines for updates. Governments and industry leaders are working to mitigate the impact. Microsoft identified the cause as a configuration change in Azure back-end workloads affecting Microsoft 365 services. The Joint Committee of the House of Representatives investigating arbitrary rise of cement product price in the country has asked major producers in the industry to tender documents on cost production to justify the price of cement in the market. The committee resolved to visit production plants of the companies after going through their books to ascertain the cost of production with a view to determine a fair price of cement for all Nigerians. The chairman of the Joint Committee, Jonathan Gaza, made the demand on Friday at a public hearing while quizzing Dangote Cement Company and Lafarge Africa PLC in Abuja. He said that the committee is interested in the cost of production from 2020 to date that justify the current price of cement, which is over 10,000 naira in most parts of the country. And on to Nigeria's economy, where the Nigeria's House of Representatives has restated its commitment to ensuring that the nation's economy is repositioned on the path of sustainable growth and development through economic diversification. I beg your pardon. The chairman of the House Committee on Monitoring, Evaluation and Implementation of the House of Representatives legislative agenda made this known in the nation's capital of Abuja, saying that the parliament has made several interventions aimed at addressing Nigeria's dwindling economic fortunes. He says that lawmakers will continue to engage relevant stakeholders to ensure that citizens benefit from the nation's wealth and Nigeria becomes an economic hub on the continent.
With an enormous endowment of green, blue, and digital resources, Nigeria is potentially positioned to serve as the green, blue, and digital hubs of Africa. As you are aware, the National Assembly has, in pursuant to its constitutional mandate, made a number of interventions, both at plenary and committee levels, towards the resolution of our national economic challenges. While these interventions are indeed yielding positive results, the need for a strategic stakeholders engagement, collaborations, and contributions in this regard cannot be overemphasized.
The National Bureau of Statistics says vote buying increased by 5% in the 2023 general elections. Released on July 11th, the NBS report titled Corruption in Nigeria, Patterns and Trends, Third Survey on Corruption as Experienced by the Population, said the elections recorded 22% of vote buying, which is 5% higher than the 2019 general elections with 17%. The agency disclosed that 22% of Nigerian citizens reported that they were personally offered money in exchange of a vote before or during the 2023 general election, while 9% were offered another favor. It described vote buying as an act of offering money, goods, or other favors in exchange for a voter's vote in an election. Justice Peter Lafi of a federal high court in Abuja has stopped the Independent National Electoral Commission from releasing the voters' register to the Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission to conduct the forthcoming local government elections in the state. Justice Lifo issued an order of interim injunction against INEC while delivering a ruling in a motion ex parte brought before him by the All Progressives Congress. The motion ex parte was filed on behalf of the All Progressives Congress by a team of senior lawyers. The judge also stopped the Rivers Electoral Commission and Rivers Attorney General from receiving from INEC or using part of the National Voters Register relating to Rivers State to conduct local government elections in the state. And still on elections, but now we head to North Africa, where Tunisia's President Kais Saied, who grabbed wide-ranging powers 2 years after his 2019 election, has announced that he will be seeking a new 5-year term in an election set for October. Speaking in the southern region of Takwane, the 66-year-old said he was answering the country's sacred call, which left him no choice but to run for a second term. Several would-be challengers to the president who had announced their candidacy are either in prison or being persecuted. In his announcement on Friday, Saied called on everyone preparing to sponsor candidates to stare off any corruption.
برج الخضراء أعلن رسميا ترشحي للانتخابات الرئاسية ليوم 6 من أكتوبر القادم إن شاء الله تعالى لمواصلة مسيرة النضال في معركة التحرير الوطنية.
And that's all on Breakfast headlines for this morning. Stay with us, there's more.
And you're welcome back again. Another big story here for our third hour on Breakfast Extra. We turn our attention to the rumors surrounding the return of environmental sanitation in Lagos State. Now, despite widespread speculation, the Lagos State government has firmly denied any intention to reinstate the policy. Now, you want to stay with us as we visit the details here as we're talking about the implications of that story now. Now, in recent days, there has been widespread speculation about the reintroduction of the monthly environmental sanitation exercise in Lagos State, accompanied by movements, restrictions. However, the Lagos State government did firmly deny these rumors. And according to the Commission for the Environment and Water Resources, Tokunbo Wahab, these reports are the works of mischief makers aiming to confuse residents. He emphasized that there will be no movement restrictions on the last Saturday of July, as falsely claimed in the viral news.
Now, the commissioner clarified that Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu's recent announcement was about initiating a weekly community-based sensitization and awareness exercise. This initiative will involve state officials leading by example, joining residents, and voluntarily cleaning the environments while spreading the message of cleanliness. At no point did the governor indicate that the monthly sanitation exercise and movement restrictions would resume in July or any other month.
The reintroduction of the monthly environmental sanitation exercise would have been seen as a necessary measure by many, given the deplorable state of the environment in Lagos. Now, since the exercise was stopped, this has been the situation. Now, with the rainy season currently ongoing, the accumulation of waste or poor drainage systems have exacerbated flooding and also spread of disease. Many residents argue that reinstating the sanitation exercise would have been a welcome development, helping to mitigate these issues and promote a healthier, cleaner environment. So to explore this topic and provide more insight, we are pleased to welcome our guest, Engineer Olakunle Rotimi Akudu, Special Advisor to the Lagos State Governor on Environment. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Good to have
Thank
you
you
here.
for coming on.
Please, Judith.
Yeah, so I must start with the rumors, right? We saw the circular or the press release in quotation marks that was littered on social media, and then, you know, the state government coming to quell the rumors and saying it's not true. But considering the denial of these rumors and regarding the reintroduction of movement restrictions for environmental sanitation, could you elaborate on what proactive measures are currently being taken by Lagos State to address environmental concerns without enforcing somewhat of a stop of movement or lockdown?
Yeah, thanks. Once again, thank you so much, Mazino and Judith. Well, I trust the state government. We are everly ready and proactive to take up challenges. But as it is, if you look at in recent times, what is happening, the cholera challenge and a lot of other, you know, unexpected, you know, news coming out in terms of public health challenges, we're left with no choice but to do more, in that respect. The state already, we've mobilized, you know, our team. They are everywhere in the market, in the public spaces, and you know, sensitizing the public, market people, you know, public schools, the garages, motor garages, you know, and a whole lot of places where you have public, you know, interest, you know, concentrated. We're working on that. We're meeting people there, sensitizing them, educating them, and letting them understand why there is need for us to take care of our hygiene is very key. Look at the ministry. From Ministry of Environment, we just signed the WASH policy. It's about, you know, water, sanitation, and hygiene. That's the kind of policy that we need to have in place for us to be able to achieve the lofty dreams in the area of water, sanitation, wastewater management, you know, and general hygiene of the state. And besides, there's a move now, there's a body formed called One Health Mission. The One Health Mission policy initiative is simply to check, you know, to chase out cholera. And that's why we have about, I think, 3 ministries coming together to work on that. We have Ministry of the Environment and Water Resources. We have Ministry of Agriculture and Ministry of Health, bring the principal, you know, focus of that.
So, Mr. Rotimi,
what that is all about is about, you know, efforts, you know, coming together to put efforts in place and to ensure that we chase out cholera.
Okay.
And you know, cholera, what it means is evidence of filth.
Yes, exactly. I was coming to that actually.
So we have to make sure that we encourage our people to go back to what,
fantastic.
You know, deserves.
And these measures that you're using, going into markets and sensitizing people, is a great effort. However, many will say sensitizing people is one thing, creating the environment or facility is another thing. We have people who are willing, like we said in the intro, we told that most Lagosians are actually willing to actually have one day set aside to come out and clean the environment since this policy was abolished a while back. However, we notice that when these people or when we are enthusiastic about cleaning the environment, we don't have the facilities or infrastructure to help us continue. We perhaps maybe clean our drainages and we put it right next to the gutters.
And when the rains come,
it pushes it back
into
inside of the gutter. Why is it that these drainages, especially the drainages, while we're talking about cholera and water being the vector, well, using that word loosely for the transmission of this disease, is, well, mainly what we find inside of our drainage along with the filth? Why don't we have facilities that enable us, once I put out my filth, that it's taken away immediately? What's Lagos State government doing about that?
Thank you. We're doing a lot with regards to that. Yeah, it's true that we've gotten reports of places where we pulled out silts from the drainages and it was left there longer than necessary.
Latif Jakande
yeah, that was left
one.
there no longer than necessary. Sometimes individuals do it, and people, tenements, residents do it, bring it out, expecting that government will come to cut away for them without communicating. Before you do those kind of things, you need to communicate with either the local government or the state government that, look, we're desilting our... people do it on their own, and they leave it there, expecting that government officials will still see it. So in situations like that, those things are left, longer than necessary. Ordinarily, by the ministry, once we bring it out, the silt, we call it desilting. Once we bring out the silt, or with some solid waste, that are there, max 24 hours, 48 hours, max.
So there's a time for that.
We have timing, and the reason is that sometimes, once you bring out those things, some of these silts are wet.
Yeah, always.
Some are extremely very wet. You cannot cut off immediately. If you try to take it off immediately, you'll be messing the whole of the streets.
So if the government
so you allow it to drain off so that it solidifies to a point where you can cut off. So in that case, you need to leave it for like 24 hours usually.
For it to dry out.
Yes. Once you cut it out today, once you take it out today, in another 24 hours max, you should come back and take it.
So if the government has a timeline,
if it is solid already, we can cut it out and immediately cut it off.
So if the government has a timeline for bringing out this silt or desilting, 24 hours it's out, what about the schedule for actually excavating these gutters? Do they have one? Do I have to be a proactive citizen and say I'm going to do it myself and just hope that they'll come and take it? Why isn't there a schedule by the Lagos State government that runs perhaps maybe every 3 weeks or once a month that these gutters are cleared? There used to be something in the early 2000s. There were Lagos State docks, if I'm correct.
Drain docks.
The drain docks. Do they still exist? Do they still function?
Yes,
what happened to them?
They are there, and we have a FAG, Emergency Flood Abatement Gang. They also do it. And what that is about is wherever you feel, or sometimes we have officers that go on inspection, and we keep record of services. Once you service a drain, you expect it to take a while before coming back. But unfortunately, what we have in our society now, in our environment, is people dumping solid waste, municipal solid waste, dumping things you don't expect. Thank God we have just, the ban on styrofoam is beginning to, show the effect, the impact, the positive impact of that ban is beginning to show now. That is quite, timely, banning the styrofoam. But our people are still used to, dump. They are still in the habit of dumping waste in the drain. So where you expect that, okay, you have cleaned this drain now, you expect to come back in another 2-3 months' time. But in less than a month, the place is filled up again. And there are so many of these drains that we need to service, we need to clean. You have the canals, the big ones, you have the collectors, the medium ones, and you have the drains in front of your houses. All of these form a whole huge, service demanding, infrastructures that we need to look at and service. But the fact that our people continue to dump in the drain is posing more challenge, at us. We have to ensure that we talk to our people, we sensitize them, we educate them, the dangers of using the drain as dump site. When it was the last flood that we noticed that came around, we could notice that we got a picture of somebody trying to empty their waste in the drain.
There was that.
We're just lucky to get that. That happened, almost on regular basis. People wait for the rain to come, and that's the time they want to empty their waste. And these things have, backlash effect on
I mean, let's look at, you are the special advisor for when it comes to environment to the state government. So, I mean, it wouldn't be out of place to ask you about flooding and the management of managing issue, waste management, and as it pertains flooding. Lagos is in a rainforest whereby the water, when it rains, it pours in Lagos. Yeah. The torrential rains is wild, and due to the population that we have, it can be very serious. Yeah. What immediate steps is Lagos State taking to improve the drainage systems and waste disposal methods, especially given the flooding?
Thank you. On the flooding, let me take it from there before the solid waste management. On the flooding, you can see that we've been doing a lot. We started out early enough, clearing all the obstacles, all the obstructions on the drainage path, on the drainage right of way. You know, we anticipated this possibility that this is going to happen, and from the forecast, we've been told that the rain volume this year will be much higher than the average in the past. So we prepared well for it, and that has showed that we were ready for it, and we did well on it. Because when these floods come, it's just flash flooding. Before you know it, they are gone. And it is natural for these floods to stay a while, and that's why we call it flash flooding, after which they drain off. Because of our proximity to the major water bodies, you have the Atlantic Ocean, you have the sea, you have the creeks, you have, so we are more like living inside water. So once we are living so close to those water bodies, then we have to prepare. Once it rains and the storm waters come, we have to prepare to drain them, get them back to where they belong. So in terms of that, with majority or most of our canals, our drainages have been taken care of in terms of desilting, in terms of clearing the right of way, in terms of awarding contract almost immediately, so that those things will be concretized and no further obstructions can come upon it. Mr. Governor is very, very concerned about that, and often, even at the ESCO meeting, these are some of the things he made mention. He keeps talking about that. Look, he doesn't want to hear anything about flooding, that it rains and there's flood. Flash flooding is understandable, but that flood will stay on there 2, 3, 4 days, and more diseases and pathogens will begin to spread. No, he doesn't want any of that. And good enough, we've been able to handle that. We're still doing more, and there's still more to do, really, because we have challenges of misinformation, people going around to say they are being witch hunted. Some of these things we're doing is deliberately targeted at certain people, or which is not. You understand? The whole idea, the whole essence is to ensure that we clear the right of way, we prepare the drainages, the channels to accommodate and to serve as conduit to take these waters back to where they belong. So we're doing that on solid waste. On the solid waste, we're doing so much around it too. Remember that if you notice that we signed an agreement with an MOU, rather, not an agreement. We had an MOU. We just signed an MOU with Juspong. That's a Ghanaian waste management company. They are not just into solid waste. They also deal in liquid waste. But majorly on solid waste, they're coming in to support our efforts in the management of municipal solid waste. Usually, that's waste to wealth. Most of these things we call waste are just misplaced resource. You understand? And when they come, we're subjecting those things to a new level of use. They can be utilized at new level that we never thought of, or we knew we have not been able to put to practice. So they're coming in, and before then, Loma is doing well. Okay. Because if you look at the pressure in Lagos in terms of population density, and the volume or amount of waste being generated in this state is huge, and giving the paucity of funds that the entire state had to grapple with. Health we need, transport we need, that we need, this we need. So environment we also need. And from the environment, Loma is just a subset of environment. And by the time you now think of what is going to Loma, juxtaposed with the volume of waste they need to contend with, is a lot of challenge. But they are doing well.
Speaking of waste management, and back to the matter of environmental sanitation, which is once a month, we've seen, even from our Vox Pop that we've had, we've seen, citizens, Lagosians, who see that they've made comments of us going back to doing this, but the state government seem to not want that. I wonder, why don't they want that?
This should be a good,
thank you. What my Honorable Commissioner, Barrister Tukumbo Philip, Wahab, corrected is don't put the cart before the horse. What Mr. Governor had not announced, what he did not proclaim, people should not go ahead to say he has said this. He has not told people, he has not told the public that don't go out. Why are people now taking it, taking that around the social media that Mr. Governor has said there will be restriction, no, he hasn't. He's studying the situation. The ministry is we're studying the situation. You understand? We have this weekly, intervention now that even Mr. Governor himself, goes out, participate, trying to encourage people, trying to that orientation, change their orientation of believing that you cannot participate in waste clearing. You cannot be part of those that will clear waste. If you can see Mr. Governor coming out, weekly to participate, then who are you? So it's starting from there. It might now build up to going back to the environmental sanitation, proper, to Mr. Governor declaring that. But for now, he's trying to encourage us to come out of our, brazen attitude of messing up our environment, believing that you don't want to step out of your door. From your door window, you toss out the waste. From your vehicle window, you toss out something. Imagine replication of your activity by the majority. Then what becomes of the state? Somebody just goes around and pure water sachet, toss it from the window of the vehicle. If everybody on that road do same, what do you think becomes of that road? Now imagine having a guest from, say, Ghana, from, say, Togo, for the first time in Lagos, and all of us from our vehicles, we've been tossing out those things. What will be the impression they will have? Then what is the impact of those things put together? So most of our people don't imagine, they don't blow up their actions to imagine if everybody do the same. Imagine you throwing things on the road, Madam Judith throwing things on the road, myself throwing it on the road. Then what happens to the state? So people just think of their own micro action that, okay, GB is just. When you put many just together, it becomes huge.
Yes, indeed.
So we have to renew our attitude and ensure that we embrace this cleanliness attitude.
Engineer Olakunle Rotimi, want to say thank you for joining us here live. But we also want to take a look at what Nigerians thought when we went out on the streets to ask them whether or not the environmental sanitation should be reinstated. Have a look and tell us what you think at the end.
Yes, for my own opinion, it's good for government to introduce it, because if you look at the environment, the area of Lagos State now, a lot of gutter is blocked because of dustbin and nylon and plastic, this thing. So if you check other places, especially, in short, all the Lagos State, because it's not like Atibi, they are doing it as they are doing it before. The flood and the other things will not happen again. Yes, government should introduce it. I myself, I like for them to do it like that. So, start doing environmental sanitation as they are doing it before. It's better, and it will make Lagos State to be clean more. For my own opinion on that particular one, government should bring a tax. If somebody, it's not good if you go to abroad, something is not happening. It can't happen in abroad.
Essentially, I'm shocked to hear that government debunk such kind of information that will necessarily make Nigerians to be aware of a conscious move to make sure their environment is clean. With the outbreak of cholera, which is as a result of poor, health and poor cleaning systems in recent times. In fact, it should be more embracing now. I'm even shocked to hear that government has debunked that kind of news. Cleanliness is next to godliness, so as they say, but people aren't aware of being clean now because of the busy way of Lagos essentially. So people are extremely very busy to even take care of their home, talking of taking care of the environment. It should be reintroduced as a matter of urgency, because if it is introduced, people will be conscious of taking out time, to ensure that firstly their environment is clean, secondly that their homes are also clean from any kind of infection or any kind of outbreaks that will result to total loss of life and health.
I think it's a good idea, Sha. Though people know about sanitation before, but some people, if they are not reminded of something, they won't take it serious. Like they will not see it as something relevant or necessary. So when government will introduce it, like make it compulsory for them, so they will feel like it's important. They'll take it serious. So I think it's a good idea for government to reintroduce sanitation.
Ordinarily, if Nigerians had been doing what they're supposed to do, there wouldn't have been need to put a regulation. But now that it's observed that some places are getting flooded due to poor drainage, I think it might be helpful, because sometimes people don't take things important except if regulation is placed on it. An example is people using seat belts. If you don't put a regulation on it, a lot of people will not use it. So since you have noticed it's a culture pattern of people not doing some things except if there is a regulation, it might be important to actually make that regulation. But at the same time, the regulatory bodies, we need to also talk to them to ensure when they are taking their exercising their duties, their responsibilities as per monitoring those that are disobeying, to not take it out of place, to ensure that they don't take advantage of people. If that could be done, then we are good.
It's not where it's supposed to be, as the government has not enforced any rule on cleanliness, and it's affecting the people, both their surroundings and their health. Yeah, it is imperative that the government introduces sanitation, because it is the masses have ignored sanitation as a whole, and so it is now the government's responsibility to introduce it back so that it reduces the outbreak of things like cholera and deaths around, and give Nigeria and Lagos a good outlook.
It will be very okay if they introduce that, right? Yes. Everywhere we change and we be neat for good. Like all these cholera, disease, everything, it will reduce.
I think if the environmental sanitation is reintroduced, I think it will be nice. It will help us to get to that place where we desire to be. Because ordinarily, Nigerians, not just Lagosians, we are just naturally dirty. If the sanitation is reintroduced, it can help the environment and prevent more outbreak of diseases.
And of course, there you have it. What Nigerians, especially Lagosians, are thinking about the reinstatement, was it to be, of the environmental sanitation policy. Well, do stay tuned, because coming back, we have our extra special here for you today, and we're discussing, well, points on what could have been the ECMR policy, and of course, vehicle documentation, and we have just the guests for that. We'll be back. And you're welcome to this edition of our extra special segment, where we touch on the most pressing issues affecting our community. Now, today we address a topic that has sparked widespread debate and concern among vehicle owners across Nigeria. Recently, the Nigeria Police Force announced the suspension of the enforcement of the Electronic Central Motor Registry of vehicle owners, a move that has been met with both criticism and relief. The ECMR, initially set to be enforced from July 29, 2024, aims to provide a comprehensive database to curb vehicular crimes by allowing officers real-time access to vehicle data.
Now, the decision to suspend enforcement was made by the Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetokun, to allow for more mass enlightenment and education of the public on the benefits and processes involved in the ECMR. Now, this move comes after significant backlash from various quarters, including the Nigeria Bar Association, which argued that the police should not be responsible for issuing such vehicle documents. Now, the suspension is intended to give citizens a bit of ample time to understand the new system and its implication for vehicle security and crime prevention.
In his statement, police spokesperson Olumuyiwa Adejobi highlighted the potential benefits of the ECMR, such as preventing multiple vehicle registrations and also enhancing the national database with biometric and other data of vehicle owners. Despite these advantages, the initial announcement faced criticism for its perceived lack of public awareness and the suddenness of its implementation. The police have now committed to a more gradual approach, focusing on educating the public before any enforcement begins. Now, given the importance of this issue, we felt it necessary to provide our audience with a comprehensive understanding on the registration process and also implications of the suggested ECMR. To this end, we have invited two distinguished guests to shed light on the subject. Joining us today are SRC Abiodun Ibrahim from the Federal Road Safety Corps and also Oluwatimileyin, an expert in auto securities. They'll be helping us navigate the complexities of vehicle registration and security, ensuring that you are well informed and prepared for any upcoming changes. Gentlemen, you're welcome.
Good
to have you.
Thank you. Good to have you.
First of Judith, I'd like us to start with Timileyin here regarding the ECMR debacle. Let's put it that way. We heard it was coming. You talked about it not even only just a month. You spoke about it a couple of months ago when it was first announced. And then now the police have backtracked. They've taken this policy out. What were the potential benefits or maybe even flaws of the ECMR should it have gone through with?
Okay, so firstly, the ECMR was not cancelled, it was suspended. And it's not a new document like it's being put out there. It's just an electronic version of a document that used to exist, which is the CMR. So before now, we used to have a CMR document that was written with biro. I mean, for a very long time, I used to think it was just a way of tipping the police when you buy a new vehicle. I really didn't see the essence of. And in every vehicle registration agency, there's always a police officer that issues these documents. But there is no clear database of all these documents. And that is why the ECMR came to place, where we say, okay, now all these documents is going to be electronic, and it's going to be done electronically, which is contrary to the way it was being done before. So, I mean, that is really the basis of the ECMR.
Okay.
Let me come to you, SRC Abiodun Ibrahim, and just ask about, I'm a vehicle owner, first time purchase a new car. And I just purchased a new car. What are the key steps involved in the proper registration of this vehicle when it comes to documentation? And what are the common mistakes vehicle owners should be aware of or literally just making for the first time?
Thank you very much. Vehicle registration is simply a process of registering a vehicle with the relevant authorities. And to obtain a license, and this license comprises of the proof of ownership certificate, the vehicle license, the roadworthiness certificate, and insurance. This license will enable the vehicle owners to operate such vehicles on public road. And it is a critical aspect of vehicle ownership, which is mandatory in most countries, including ours. And as a first owner, like you said, their registration is called initial registration, which in our local times we call fresh registration. I'm buying a new car that is being imported into the country that has not been registered in Nigeria. So what you do I'm taking Lagos for example. They have station, about more than 50 stations where you can register your vehicle.
You walk in there, you produce your custom paper with the VIN, which is chassis number. Our people will call it chassis number. So when you provide that VIN number, and an auto VIN check is done on it to tell us the history of that vehicle, if that vehicle has not been registered in the country. So from there, you take it up, they produce your vehicle license, allocate a proof of ownership certificate to you, and a regular number if it's for private use. But if a vehicle that has been used by someone before, that vehicle is called transfer of ownership, or we call it change of ownership. So I'm simply selling my vehicle to Mr. Mazino. So my database, my information is on the database of the state, and equally FRSA have their own database at the federal level that houses information of all vehicles in the country. So I'm selling that vehicle to you, and you are trying to register it. The system will complain, Mr. Ibrahim is using this vehicle. There is need for you to do change of ownership, which is another process of registration entirely. But registering a vehicle, especially in Lagos, is easier to be done. And like I said, the very important document, the vehicle license, which the state will allocate to you, the roadworthiness certificate from the VIO, the insurance from the insurance company, and the proof of ownership certificates that comes with the number.
What are some first-time mistakes? What are some mistakes, common mistakes that you see vehicle owners making in documentation and getting their papers?
Well, most first-timers doesn't really go through that process. In like Lagos now, they have people we call client representative who assist people in registering their vehicles. And you can easily, their stations is all over the state. You can easily walk in there. They tell you the procedure. There is a paper called allocation paper. You fill in all your details, the names, address, and when it's not complete, some people will just write number 8, Wenko Road. And Wenko Road can be in Abeokuta. So they will tell you Wenko Road is in Ikeja, Lagos. So those are just some of the mistakes. And the VIN number, the state have put mechanism in place to verify VIN number. So if you are providing a VIN number that is not okay, the system will tell you that, check this VIN number. So there is so many, those are some of the mistakes individual make.
So it would seem that there is a database already for vehicles, documentation, your VIN number, chassis number, whatever. Yeah. It's in a database for the FRSC.
Yes.
So now when it came, and I use past tense deliberately, to the issue of the CMR, Time, I'm bringing you back in on this one now. Why? Because you talked about the fact that it was existing before, and now it's only just simply being electronic, just so that you have your data inside of a system. But there was a database, as you're telling us now. So what did you think was the rationale behind that at the end of the day? Why so many agencies for car documentation when we have the FRSC? I know you're going to answer this as well. When we have the FRSC, if I'm going to start counting, there's VIO, police will also stop, then customs when you're traveling. There's so many. But what gives, do you think, your professional experience?
Thank you for that question. So, like you said, the vehicle licensing documents and the database is state-wise. It is not centralized. But police is one across the country. So for police to use their data, police need a central data that brings up everything together. We currently don't have that. And if we even go deeper into this issue, and that is why I'm really passionate about the ECMR, because it is one of the first phases of digitalizing even the police. And if we are saying that police brutality on the road and everything needs to stop, this is one of those things that we need to even put. But even if we want to go even higher, even from the customs, the vehicle coming into the customs should already be in the database already before you even register. You are not supposed to be taking the VIN number or the chassis number to FRSC to register a vehicle or to road safety. It should be, once customs is clearing the vehicle, we should already have that data. Then that data is used centrally. But right now, the database that exists per state. And that is why I can say that the roadworthiness procedure in Lagos State is a bit tedious. So rather, I can just decide I want to go and do my roadworthiness in Ogun State.
I want to jump on that, and I want to come back to you, Superintendent. Now, he just mentioned something about the lack of centralization of these data mechanism. Why is that so? Why do I have a state central system in one place and a federal one in the other? For instance, if I bought a car, and this did happen from Rivers State, and I tried to register it here in Lagos State, I'm asked to go back to Rivers State, and the process is tedious. If you were to commit an offense in Lagos State with an Abuja plate, for instance, the rumor, and I say this deliberately, the rumor is that you are not captured in the system. Is this true?
Let me start from this angle. Now, all number plates that is being used in this country is being produced by Federal Road Safety Corps, except that of Lagos. The states have their own plant that does their production. And when that production is being done, they furnish FRS headquarters with the numbers and the range of number plates that are being produced. So that is captured into the National Vehicle Identification Scheme, the NVIS portal. Now, when FRSC produces number plates for other states, the state comes to FRSC to pick those number plates. When they sell it to individual, the states house those information and push it into FRSC database. They push it. FRSC doesn't register number plates. We only produce the same way we produce driver's license. So when we produce those number plates, the states, through their Board of Internal Revenue, comes around, picks those number plates, sell it to Mr. A, Mr. B. Mr. A lives at so-so place. They give us the information, and they push it into FRSC database. So that is how we house our own information. And it's necessary, too, for the state. If it's Ogun State plate, they should have the information of whoever is using that place. And coming to what he said, on several times, it comes to my table when investigation is being done. The DSS, NDLEA, Civil Defense, they write letter to the sector commander in Lagos or whoever is the sector commander in that particular state. And the desk officer, the NVIS desk officer in that state, furnish the authority with those information of the vehicle. So on ECMR is not a topic I can talk on because I'm not a personnel of the police. But the FRSC, the same way the state houses information of number plates allocated to individual, we do same too.
I would like to ask, and I'm doing this for everybody out there, I'm very sure, if you can state a differentiation of responsibility across the agencies. What exactly is the VIO responsible for? What's the FRSC responsible for? What are the police looking for when they stop me on the highways?
Yeah, because very interesting with their duplicity. Everyone is duplicating each other's rules and responsibility.
What are
and
the customs looking for? Should they be out there? Who should I attend to?
Now, I can't really speak for other agencies. Like I said at the beginning of the interview, the basic document for vehicle owners is the vehicle license, the roadworthiness, which is being issued by the VIO. The insurance, every vehicle is expected to have insurance, and the proof of ownership certificates being issued by the authority that is licensed to do that. So FRSC is just housing those information. We are not collecting money to do that. It's just a database at the federal level. We are just housing those information because we did the production of those number plates. So I can't really speak on other agencies, but the VIO, they house those information because of the roadworthiness certificates, which all vehicle needs. So, and at state level, each state have their own consultant who helps them to run the vehicle license. So in Lagos, I think it's the Courtview solution. We call them AutoReg. They are the one in charge. So they house all those information for Lagos number, and they equally push SIM into the national database, which is the FRSC database. So on the ECMR issue, it's it's not my
final question.
I mean, you've answered pretty much all the question, but then the situation talks about, addressing the issue of fraudulent documentation, and how best can you now ensure the integrity of the vehicle registration system and process for just our viewers as individuals?
Well, like I said, sometimes around last year in Lagos State, there is this thing they call AutoVIN. AutoVIN will always verify the history of your vehicle. And if you are bringing...
Do I have access to it as an individual?
You don't. It's being handled by the VIS in Lagos. So what they do is we've seen situations whereby they've brought in two vehicles with the same chassis number, and it's not possible. I don't know if you've observed it. 2 vehicles using the same chassis number. Yeah. And our management at the headquarters provided us with OBD scanner. So we can use that to scan vehicle, even if you are seeing a different number on that vehicle. And the scanner will tell us this is the chassis. So there is so many ways people are coming out with fraudulent ways of registering vehicle. And the system too is getting hooked of them. So those issues, people are coming up with a different way, and the system is really getting
Timile, in 1 minute, you're an advocate for the ECMR. Yeah. What do you hope, or what modus operandi do you hope the Nigerian police could go about this so that it's not a burden on vehicle owners? In just a minute.
Well, I feel like what is really important is enlightenment and understanding the reason why the ECMR is important. But yeah, in terms of what I feel like can be done better in terms of the costs. The cost has been a concern, and the renewal, the fact that it has to be renewed yearly, is also. But in terms of the real advantage of the ECMR, I think the ECMR is a very important document that needs to be, that we actually need to have, because most crimes are perpetrated with the use of a vehicle one way or the other, and for easy tracking of these vehicles, database needs to be got. And aside from that, also the ECMR is also linking your NIN to your.
So am I giving the police access to my account?
Data. I mean, there's also a conversation about data privacy as well.
Exactly.
You know.
I mean, this is
all that needs to be discussed.
It's the police.
Because I'm not
police.
I'm very comfortable with somebody in black and black having access. He's got 2,000 naira. But we wish we could continue, but unfortunately we have run out of time for the entire show for today. But Timile, I want to say thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much.
Superintendent Ibrahim, thank you very much for coming in as well, representing the FRIC. And also let's say thank you to our viewers. Thank you very much for being a part of the show. You guys are always the ones that we do this for. We appreciate that you guys have taken out time to be here up until 10 o'clock. So do make sure that you are here all through today and join us again tomorrow, because we'll be back here for the Sunday edition.
Oh, yes, indeed. It will be the final weekend installment of Breakfast Extra. But you know what to do. Keep a dial on here to News Central TV. There's more lined up just for you. Coming up after this, at the top of the hour, 11 a.m., it's going to be time for In the Game. Onye Obaro is on standby. For now, it is goodbye and good morning from us.
Goodbye and good morning.